Committee meeting Thursday, March 9th to order and read the script. So, public participation guidelines for remotely conducted open meetings. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion, and the town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronell, Chair of the Finance Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative, starting with Joe Grouse.
Aye.
Peter Schaefer.
Aye.
Jill Veith.
Aye.
Jeremy Bloomer.
Aye.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the
Joanna's here
affirmative.
too, Denise.
Oh, she doesn't show up on my.
There she is.
Oh, there's Joanna. Okay. Joanna Roche. Yep, waved at us. Good.
Sorry, kid thing.
That's okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Brian Turbot,
In attendance.
Maria Basheva.
Here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. We're convening by Zoom. Please remember that it's being recorded and that anything that other folks can see you, and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda and the agenda item. And after I do so, I will then ask the members if they have any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. And let's see, and I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And I am home by myself, so if Joey, my dog, needs to go out, I will try to. Hopefully he doesn't. I just took him out now. Thank you. It's good to be able to share all this with everybody. May I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. And Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jill.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Joanna. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'm opening the meeting for whoever McCusker is. McCusker, you have to have a first name, please. So I only see McCusker. Not sure who can fix that. Maria can fix it if you tell her your first name. So, okay.
Liz McCusker. Liz.
Okay, Maria, could you put Liz in front of Ms. McCusker's name, please? Thank you. Okay. And so I now open the meeting for public comment. Is there any public comment of anything that is not on our agenda? Seeing none, I will close the public comment, and we start with review, discussion, and potential adoption of motion for the following town meeting of warrant articles. Up first is number 8, Select Board General Operating Fund Budget. And just as a preliminary comment for the Finance Committee members, please remember that the town is still in negotiations with all the unions. So some questions you may have may not be appropriate for a public meeting, and please keep that in mind. Okay, so Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. So before you, you have Article 8, which majority of this article was reviewed on the Saturday meeting in January, as well as the school committee meeting a couple of weeks ago when they made a budget presentation to you. Maria, if you could scroll down, there are 2 changes to this budget that I'm going to take you through before stop. The first one is within Public Works. We added $70,000 to the operating line item expense at the request of the Park and Recs Director in consultation with the Cemetery Commission. They would like to continue doing mapping and some headstone assessments in the town cemeteries. When we get down to the motion, I'll take you through, but that funding source does not impact the actual general fund operating budget, because that is a transfer from an account which is known as the Receipts Reserve for Appropriation account, and it comes from the sale of cemetery lots, and the funds are held in a special revenue fund and with town meeting approval of the Article 8 budget, they would be transferred from that account into this account to cover those expenses, and any unused money at the end of the year would automatically revert back into that particular fund to be reauthorized at a subsequent town meeting. Maria, if you could also scroll down. The education line item has increased by rather substantially. In consultation with town administration and the superintendent and the chief financial officer, they have come to us, as everybody's aware, we're all in negotiations, and asked for some additional money to be put into the salary line item. It's approximately $800,000. We have spoken to them about this, and we believe we can make that accommodation, which we have added to this budget, with the understanding that anything that is not needed, once all negotiations townwide are settled, would then be returned to be unexpended at the end of the year and returned into the general fund to be recalculated into free cash. So we have agreed with their request to increase that line item. It is reflected in the motion. Those are the only changes to the budget from the presentation on the Saturday meeting, as well as the school presentation. So Maria, if you could please take me to the bottom of the article, that would be greatly appreciated. So it brings the new total for the grand total of the operating budget, $73,772,473 for salaries, and $42,462,842 for operating expenses, including insurances, retirement assessments, debt service, and operating expenses within the department line items, for a grand total of $116,235,316. Below that line item, you will see how we are recommending to meet that appropriation. We're recommending $114,605,816 be raised and appropriated from the fiscal 24 tax levy and other general revenues of the town, which do include local estimated receipts, any chargebacks that would come into the general fund from the enterprise funds, and state aid as well, with, as I noted, with the $70,000 to be transferred from the sale of cemetery lots, and consistent with the free cash policy for one-time expenses, only $1,559,500 be transferred from free cash in the treasury. Free cash was certified as of yesterday, so this number, we are confident, is fine. All the $116,235,000 to include one-time and operating expenses of the various department budgets. So I'll be happy to entertain any questions from the committee, Madam Chair.
Questions from anyone on the finance committee? You're gonna have to do raise hand because, thanks, Maria. Joe?
Brian, what was certified free cash?
$20,553,000.
23?
20,553,000.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Jocelyn, we need a last name, please, on the screen. So if you can't change it, just say your last name and Maria can do that for you.
Jocelyn Duffy.
Thank you. Yeah, we need first and last names for everybody. Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, other questions?
Nope.
Not seeing any. May I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any debate or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Okay.
Jeremy, aye. You want me?
Oh, sorry, Jeremy. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Article 9, appropriation, Health and Human Services. Who is leading on that?
Madam Chair, both Jericho and Dorothy are here, so I will turn it over to Jericho for any introductions, and then I believe Dorothy will take the Finance Committee through the CRC's recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jericho.
No problem at all. Very quickly, I'm Jericho Mealy, Director of Human Services. Dorothy Hertz is the Chair of the Contract Review Committee for Human Services Grants. That should be the sum of the introductions necessary, and I will let Dorothy take it away.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dorothy.
Thank you for having us here today. In front of you, we have the recommendations from the Contract Review Committee for the 2024 Human Service grants and the cannabis grants. I'm sorry that you do not have the cannabis report. It will be to you. And we'd like to make a little presentation on both of them to you and then answer any questions that you might have. This year's grant process actually saw 14 people apply for the grant. We awarded grants to 12 of the individuals applying for it. 2 of them, Addiction Solutions, we moved over to the recommended the cannabis grant, and Habitat for Humanity did not fit into the criteria we believed for this grant process. And so they were pulled out. And in going over who we made recommendations and why we made the recommendations, one of the first things I'd like to talk about a little bit is what we're seeing in the community on the idea of cultural competence and how these organizations, whether or not they're providing it and who's providing it at the highest level. And it, of course, again, this year, the people that are doing the best job is Health Imperatives. Their ability to provide programs within their stature that meet not only the needs, but the cultural needs within the community. They're getting their word out because people are comfortable within the setting, they're comfortable with the services, and they've built a trust. The people they're getting their services from are culturally diverse, and henceforth have made a very large impact within that community. The nurse practitioner doing practice there sees 825 clients. When you think about seeing 825 clients over a 2-day period, every week, imagine what they would be able to do if they saw more. But look at the influence that 825 clients has within the community at large. So we just sort of wanted to talk a little bit about them because their work is outstanding. I know that they've worked really hard with Jericho within the Human Service Department in the last year again, and have some great programs that they're working on implementing through funding they've received through state and federal grants besides our grant. And so I just wanted to sort of talk about that one because I think that that's where we have our biggest hurdle in the community is cultural competence and how each program can actually become make their programs more viable that way to our community at large. If you read my report, the numbers, our community of the increase in our Hispanic community in the last 20 years is quite dramatic, especially within our school district, and the way that number is now almost outweighing every other population within the school district. And the influence and the cultural changes that has brought within our community. Everybody struggles, whether it's a municipality, whether it is the human services sector, whether it's the private sector, on how we can make or become more culturally diverse, or how do we make it a part of our everyday life. So they are truly, Health Imperatives is truly a model on how it can be done and how it can be implemented. So I'm going to go on to some of the others programs that we're funding and why we're funding them. And as I do, of course, I do want to make a notification about Fair Winds and NAMI. Their behavioral health initiative, has been something that we've been asking for a long time about the collaboration within human services. And in the last few months, they've begun this very strong and remarkable effort within the community to bring together everybody in the behavioral health and health fields on an initiative, and the police department, of finding ways to solve a problem and versus just talking about the problem. And their work is monumental in what we've been seeking as the CRC about collaboration. They've been able to show to us that if you seek it, it can be done. And if you put the work in and you're willing to say, it's not about whether we're going after my funds or your funds, but we have an end result we want, amazing things can happen. And in 4 months, they're even blown away by what they've been able to accomplish in just a few months. So we're looking forward to seeing how far that will go. If this is the foundation, imagine where it will go for all of us. And Fairwinds has gotten some of the state contracts they've taken over at the hospital. They also got the new Massachusetts Behavioral Health Center funding through Department of Mental Health. So it is making Fairwinds a stronger, more viable entity within our community. They've hired more staff, and with their partnership with NAMI, we have the major resources of mental health working together for the first time. And it's just absolutely amazing. NAMI's program itself has been working with the private sector to offer more diverse programs to people that don't want to be in that institutionalized type of treatment program. And when I say institutionalized, just that it's one location where everybody seems to be going to. I've already sort of spoken about health imperatives, but I think it's important to know the amount of different programs they offer outside of, people seem to think of them as just reproductive health. That is not all they are. That is just one of the very little big things, but little within the scope of what they do. They offer HEP treatment, HIV AIDS. They work with most of the LGBTQ community, offering services to them. They work with the WIC program. They've been doing medicated assisted treatment for alcohol and drug abuse. And which is cool about them is the fact that they are meeting the part of our community that is not usually using the other resources like addiction solutions and things like that for help, because they feel that they can be trusted there. I know that they're beginning a Narcan program. They've done education and outreach. So their program is run by this amazing group of women that work together. And they reach over, I think it's 1,700 people a year within our community. That is an amazing amount for one organization to actually reach. So as you can tell, we are really, every year we give them a goal. They come into us with a goal and they say, we're going to do this. If your goal is at 50%, they're at 150% that following year. They've more than accomplished it. They've given us what we've asked for, and they've exceeded expectation. So I'm going to go on to the Interfaith Council. Of course, right now, as we all know, the Interfaith Council provides the food, rental assistance, and fuel assistance. To date, they have served up to date 752 unique households as of the time of this report. Considering that they did 1,000, I think it was 1,001 last year. By the end of the year, they're ahead. They are serving more households than they did before. They have also served 73 households with rental assistance and are about 22 with fuel assistance this year. It is always, the Interfaith Council, these programs that they run are really core to our community because they are the basic needs being met for people: food, shelter, and heat. And so we applaud the work they continue to do. They've been in a restructure, and we're looking forward to seeing where that restructure brings us in their ability to even work more intensely within every other facet of the community. The Meals on Wheels, again, we are recommending a complete funding of them. They worked with 78 homebound families or homebound elders. Of course, that to some is the only program that they get, the only interaction they have with individuals. And is key in their mental, for a lot of people, not only their physical, but their mental health. And it's just an unbelievable program, totally run by volunteers, except for the people that are cooking the program. And what we pay in our, what we ask for from the town covers about 11% of their overall budget to provide this program. The Martha's Vineyard Community Service is works with developmental disabilities within the community. It is right now working, it has 15 families it is working with, and 3 adults outside the age of 18 that they are providing services to. If you become a member of this by becoming a member of the Department of Mental Health, and through their Department of Developmental Services. And then you can stay with them forever. And this is one program that once you're in it for life. They will stay with you. They do, even if they might only serve 2 or 3 adults, they will check in with those adults to make sure that they're doing okay. And if they need help, once they've been put into the system. Everybody asks why it's called Martha's Vineyard Community Service. If you have never been a part of this, it's just they're underneath the Martha's Vineyard social services, and their programs are and fund only here. Their program also actually helps with education within the school district. They offer programming for adults, for teachers, and for community members throughout the year, as well as programs for families. Even interactive programs like at the Dreamland is part of what they do, so kids can go in and see movies that are done in closed caption for them and in an environment where they feel safe. The Artists Association does the Healing Through Arts program. That program offers for people for stress and addiction problems or mental health issues to find exploration through arts, which they have found is monumental in the change and in the health of well-being of individuals struggling with abuse or addiction or mental health, behavioral issues. By being able to exhibit your art, by able to put your feelings into art, it has always benefited and makes things more stable within for individuals. Sorry. Going on, we have Small Friends, which is the early education center in our community. It provides stable and reliable childcare. They are still not at capacity because they do not have all their staff. They've been unable to get staff. They are only at 39 students at this moment in time. They are licensed for 69 because they have been unable to get staff. Some of that we talked to them at great length. Some of that has to do with what their salary is, because they don't have a very high salary base, which they've been working on. And the other is there's no staff. Nobody has staff. And so they've been working to try to increase that number, but they have been steady at 39 since COVID, since they reopened at COVID. South Coast Legal Services offers our community free legal service in family law, domestic violence, housing, and immigration law. We pay for basically their travel over to the island. It is probably the best bang for the buck we get out of anything, considering they've serviced about 29 individuals last year. When we're saying that we would like to give them $4,500, we are truly just covering the cost of their expense to get to the island, not the services that they are rendering. Sherburne Commons is one of our new ones this year, or it is the new one that we are giving money to, and that is for a memory care cafe to be run through the community school in coordination with Sherburne Commons, who will be carrying the 5013C for them. It is a program for Alzheimer's care and dementia. I believe they're going to do both, and it will be held at the facility on Orange Street. They're going to do that twice a week. And they're very excited about what that program can be. It is something that the Elder Service Council of Aging has been advocating for since prior to COVID and sort of got dropped during COVID. So we're excited to see this because it is, of course, a demographic in the community that we tend not to invest enough into. So we're excited to see that happen. Those are the programs that we are supporting or advocating to have the support. You have the monies ahead of you, which is we are making a request to fully fund Safe Place. We are giving a request of NAMI of 98,486. Elder Services, a full request at 21,600. Health Imperatives, 150. Fair Winds, 150. Martha's Vineyard Community Service, 17,154. Legal Services, 4,600. The Interfaith Council, 81. Small Friends, 20. Artist Association, 20. And Sherburne Commons, 17,160 for a total of $650,000. That is our request and our recommendation within the human service part of our grants. The next grant that we have is the cannabis grant, which we had 4 members apply to. One is Fair Winds, the other Addiction Solutions, NAMI, and Health Imperatives. That cannabis grant is for substance abuse programming or education and services. Fair Winds has the peer recovery program, which is a form of one-on-one mentorship, or it's not mentorship, but it's peer recovery is working with somebody who has had addiction in the past, who through their experience helps others through their ongoing recovery. They've had 24 cases with success that they are mentoring. They've hired another peer recovery coach and are hoping to expand this service. What's really great about peer recovery is the fact that it is now being recognized by Mass Health and other insurance as being a insurable form of recovery. So as that begins to expand, Mass Health has definitely done it. Blue Cross and Blue Shield is looking into it. And the numbers and its success nationwide is helping move this into an insurance-based program. So as we were learning that, they did ask for 100,000. We decided that 37.5, because we understood that they were going to be able to start getting insurance reimbursements for these services, made it even makes it even more viable for everybody along the way, and sustainable, which is what we're hoping for. When we try to fund programs, we're trying to fund sustainability as well. And to us, that's big. One of the things I should have said is that on our last presentation, we fought for years, even when Denise was on on CRC, about asking Fair Winds to get fund Medicaid. And they officially got funding through Medicaid and reimbursement for Medicaid for treatment, which has lessened the amount they're asking us for some of the treatments. So we were really proud that when we pushed for that, and we pushed for years, and that just asking and asking, that it actually finally went through. And that's what's exciting about them getting this kind of financial backing now through the peer recovery program. Addiction Solutions, which is run by Dr. Lepre, came to us for 175,000. They are a medically assisted program and they provide for recovery. They had come to us last year, pulled at the very last minute. It is one of the only programs besides Fair Winds on the island. Gosnell right now is running a small soap program on the island that we funded through this grant last year. But Tim Lepre, right now, his program is servicing I think it was Jericho, can I be correct on this, 100 individuals? Am I correct?
We can always call on Dr. Lepre himself, but yeah, I believe about 100 individuals.
Okay. It has really touched. His philosophy has been that nobody who needs it can't get it. And he's available 24/7 to everybody to provide this. He's got a great staff working underneath him and working with him. From his daughter is actively involved with him in this program as well. In the last year, they're working more with Fair Winds too, in getting what we would call is the therapeutic end of the treatment in place, which is really crucial. He has sustained this program on his own for many years with a little bit of donor participation. We believe it is a viable tool and a very valuable tool to the island and a very sustainable one. He just can't go anywhere. Sorry. And so we recommend a funding of $75,000 out of that 175 that he requested. NAMI has come to us with an educational program for the age group of 18 to 29-year-olds. And that is one of the concerns we've had is, besides the elderly, what about this group that gets out of school and becomes out of the eyesight of everybody? Their education program will be offered to everybody in the community. They will have guest speakers and programs working within the community, access to Fair Winds, to the schools, and to the community at large. They have been very successful at their educational programs and presentations, and we believe this is a vital area in the community or age group that is getting missed. So we have made a recommendation of the 25,000 into that area. The other to come to us with health imperatives. They asked us for 78,000. We are making a recommendation of 37.5 for health imperatives as well. Health imperatives wants to do a culturally appropriate education and intervention within the community, which support, and also to help support their medically assisted program that they're doing inside of health imperatives right now. We have no doubt that what health imperatives will bring forward to this community will be beneficial and key in the process, where Dr. Leprie's program offers such great work to everybody. Health imperatives does have that key within that community that most everybody else does not have. And that big word of trust is there. And not only have they built the trust within that, they've actually built a huge trust within the CRC and their ability to produce and perform within their contracts. So those are the recommendations that we are making. That recommendation comes to $175,000 out of $403,000 in $403,000, yes, in requests. Any questions on those from anybody?
Thank you, Dorothy. Jill?
Hey, Dorothy, thanks for that. I'm just a little confused, and for some reason the report is maybe it's not downloading correctly here, but can you tell me again how much money Dr. Lepre got?
Correct. Dr.
How much
Lepre
health imperatives
requested,
got, and maybe a little bit more detail about, or maybe a little more detail about the difference between them, what their services are.
I'm sorry, Jill, I'm having a problem hearing you. Are you asking me how much money we gave to Addiction Solutions and what the difference is in the program being offered between him and Health Imperatives? Okay. Dr. Leprie's program, we gave $75,000 out of the request for 175. We gave him 75,000. Or that is our recommendation is 75,000. Dr. Lepre runs a full program, Suboxone program, or it's not only Suboxone, but medically treated assistance program for people in recovery.
So you need to have a medical doctor there for that. Yeah.
You have to have somebody licensed to do that. Yes.
To do the Suboxone. Yeah. Okay.
To do the programs. Health Imperatives is also an education and outreach program. That's a big part of their component, is the education and outreach within the community on substance abuse.
Gotcha. So they're adjusting that a little differently.
Yes.
I
They're looking a
see.
little differently, but they also,
Thank you.
they also service two completely different facets. I mean, I know that Dr. Lepre sees patients, but he at the Suboxone, but he doesn't have as many patients within that cultural realm that Health Imperatives services within the community.
I see. I see. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
And if I may add as well, Health Imperatives integrates a lot of its harm reduction and substance misuse treatment in with the remainder of its existing health offerings. So it's more of a one-stop shop. You don't need to make a decision to go to a separate service provider to be offered and educated this particular type of treatment. So there is an additional outreach advantage going on there.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jared.
Jericho.
Other questions? Okay, Joe has to recuse as he's on the board of Sherburne Commons. So with that, do I have any other comments or questions, Joanna?
I just want to say thank you to Dorothy and Jericho and Anne for the tremendous amount of time and work that they put into this. And to those other folks who are on this call, Laura and Liz and Jocelyn, thank you for coming this afternoon, and to Tim, who's here as well. I think that this represents a large and very long-term commitment to these issues in our community. And I think it's important that we recognize the work that all these folks do, and also the money that the town invests in these services and in taking care of our community. So I want to say thank you. And I will, Denise, if it's appropriate, I make a motion to accept the recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motions? In which case, roll call, starting with Jeremy,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill,
Hi.
Denise, I. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now Dorothy, we need to talk about the letter for the supplemental funding.
Okay.
So please share your thoughts with that, and please explain why that did not go through the normal process, nor was it requested by the school.
Oh, okay. The issue, we made the request for the 175,000 after all the issues that have come up in the community that were going on at the school with the vaping and the plumbing issues at the school, but it more had to do with what was actually going on within the school district. And with what has been highlighted going on, not only in the school, but as they say, moving out into the community. And so in a discussion within the CRC, as we were going through this process, the one thing we realized is that the school needs help, or the community needs help within this age group. And a lot of it has to do with prevention and education. As much as we're funding prevention, and we're just beginning to fund it really in the other areas of the 18 to 29-year-olds, and looking at this grant for this coming year for Health Imperatives to get some out, there isn't any sustainable program going on within the school district or some of the community to hit this area where they're needing help. Whether it's a culturally diverse program, whether it is it's hitting everything inside our school district, our community, with prevention and education for children on substance abuse. And so we felt there had to be a way that we could make a difference and get a foundation of a program within the districts so that they could take over on their own in seeing the value of what could be available. Clearly, we're missing it. We're missing the boat somewhere here. With the amount of children that are either in substance abuse treatment facilities, mental health programs, eating disorder programs, we're missing something pretty big.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Isn't the high school a different universe of people than the 18 to 29-year-olds?
They are, and that's why I said the 18 to 29-year-olds were being covered by the NAMI grant. The NAMI grant came out after that age group. What has been historically true is that programs have had difficulty getting into the buildings and or especially into some of the public school buildings. And we are trying to find a way to help them if they don't have the tools, to give them the tools and initiate the beginning of tools and collaboration within programs in the community. If they start if we can get some of these programs started within the community, there's possibilities of grants out there at the state level to help them once they can prove that they've got a program up and running. So we're
I had a
trying.
question on your request.
Uh-huh.
What age bracket within the schools are we talking about? Is this, 7th through 12th grade?
No, we're actually talking about the whole youth community. So we're talking about beginning education as early as you can through the age of 18 in any program within the school community, within the community that services children. So we're talking about, you have the Boys and Girls Club, you have the Lighthouse School, the New School, youth programs, the Dreamland and their acting program, anywhere where we can make a difference and make an impact in the lives of the children in this community, because every one of them is precious. And if you've never experienced addiction or mental health in your family and in your life, it can be devastating when you lose a day, a month, a year, a life of a child. You can never get it back. You can't get any of those moments back. And somewhere or another, we have to come up with a way of getting some education out there to stop it, to stop what families are going through. What we're asking for is less than somebody will pay to bring one person through any form of recovery. And
You're absolutely correct that the problems are huge and they can be devastating. But maybe you could just focus a little bit on the market and how this money might be used, or what you think it could be used for, because this amount of money for everything you just described wouldn't be sufficient. So I was curious on the focus and how you could make an impact.
Maybe I can get a question in as well.
Wait, Peter, hang.
Well, it goes hand in hand with what Jeremy said.
Hang on. I was just about to say, before you got to, here's how we're going to do this. Jeremy's question, then Peter's question, then Jericho will speak, and then Dorothy will speak. I just wanted to get it back in order here, people. Okay. So Peter, your question.
I thought Jeremy's question was first. No?
No. We're not answering questions yet. I want them all bundled together. I want Jeremy's plus yours.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want my question?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm confused. Dorothy, who's going to run these programs? Who's going to actually be in the schools or in whatever place you determine to run these programs?
And then Jericho, because you've had your hand up for a while, I wanted, in case you had something to jump in on, and then we'll go back to Jeremy. What's the actual program? How's it going to work? Peter, who's going to run it? Who's going to own it? And then, Jericho, you can start, and then Dorothy can tag along. Thank you.
Actually, my contribution is going to address basically all of those questions. The reason why this was not requested through regular school patterns is because it's not designed to address only the public school population, but any school age people who are on Nantucket in or out of the school session. The additional reason why the agencies involved, anything that goes on in the school has to happen in partnership with employees of the school. So it would be a partnership between a variety of different groups, because it's not a problem that starts and stops at the school doors. And additionally, the rationale for why this additional funding is necessary comes from a couple of different directions. Dorothy alluded to the Nantucket Behavioral Health Initiative, which is a partnership across a variety of different stakeholders on the island. One of the major issues, the formation of that group was caused by a recent GAPS study that was performed by GPS, which is a Government Process Solutions, who worked on a Eagle Valley behavioral health rationalization program, which we're using as a model. They identified a variety of different gaps in services, most of which were limited by both the availability of funding for non-traditional sources and the changing environment facing youth. Primarily what they found is that there's a huge lack of wraparound services and coordination across different agencies to address the problems that don't start and stop at any particular agency. So by requesting this money outside of its normal allotment process, we would be able to allocate that money across departmental lines and jumpstart collaboration and coordination through a variety of different people who are ironing out new communications coordination strategies.
Thank you, Jericho. Dorothy, did you want to add anything to Jeremy or Peter's questions?
No, actually not at all. I think he wrapped it up. This would not be owned by just one program. It would actually be that you would come in and apply and we would find the program that best fit within the community.
So here's where I'm struggling with this, and I'll be very blunt, which is there is a extensive CRC process for getting money. Extensive. I sat through it for 2 years. Jill sat through it. Joanna sat through it. So is Peter, or so is Stephen Morey. And it's an important process that goes through a lot of rigor. And there are many things in the community that require assistance that are, you can't take suffering and put a grade on it that this group is suffering more than this group. You just can't do that. It's just not, well, it's not human as far as I'm concerned. So the fact that the CRC of its own bat decided that it wanted to ask for additional money when the town is already contributing $825,000 without having to say during your deliberations, when this came up, I don't know why you didn't say, you know what, we're going to carve out 100,000 and do that out of our deliberations. And so this feels to me like we're kind of doing an end run around what is a very good process, or a very detailed process at least. And it's just, there's plenty of opportunities for where there's need. So I'm struggling with this, to be honest, and I'm going to turn to Brian in a minute and talk about if this is even possible to be funded by the town. Joanna?
I just want to add a little bit to that. I think, and I'll try to answer some of your questions. I think that as we were sitting through the process, you know, the requests we had are well over $650,000 and all very deserving. And so we trim all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first point that I would make. And as the information was coming out of the school in terms of substance abuse education and some of the needs, I think we were recognizing several things. One of which is that the programs that we see be most successful through the CRC are ones that have attempted to make individual relationships with people who are not in the normal group, right? Normal is the wrong word, right? So if we're talking about the larger group of people, the people who need the help are not necessarily people who are coming forward to ask for it, right? And so we've seen much success in the health imperatives model, right? And I don't think anyone was suggesting that we would ask for this money and not have the applicants to use the fund go through the exact same process that everybody else does. What we wanted to do was to be able to say to our community, we are looking to address this problem in real time. We understand that the school doesn't necessarily have the resources or the ability to make this happen as quickly as it needs to, but we have a group of committed individuals who have an expertise in vetting these organizations and who are willing to put the time in to vet applications and help to make these programs happen quickly. And I think that, you know, Dorothy's had some conversation with some folks in the school. I've had some conversations with some folks in the school. We're hoping that we could partner up, say, individuals within the school system with Fairwinds and try to execute, or other organizations, possibly Tim's organization, where they could take a chunk of the money and execute on a substance abuse education program that is outside of the operational cost that they already factored into their request for 2024. I hope I did an okay job. And I think the reason we came up with the amount of money that we came up with was we looked at the overall budget for the town, and you know, $1 million, we basically rounded up to $1 million, which is just under 1% of the budget. And so we felt like we weren't asking for too much. It's a one-year thing. And we could really say that we, Contract Review Committee, Finance Committee, Town of Nantucket, wants to support some education in this area, and we're willing to put this much money up for it. And we want it to happen within this year. So that was really, where we were coming from. I hope that helps.
It does help. I will react to that and say, I don't think putting down table stakes really means that you're going to have a good program to execute. I'm sorry, but this is throw down some money and then let's all scramble around and get it done. And I get that it's urgent. I get it. And at the same time, when we had the school budget in front of us, I asked the superintendent, do you have money set aside for this? I said, you had $100,000 worth of damages. What are you doing about this? We haven't allocated it at this time. Now, this to the CRC probably seems like, the sky is falling. And at the same time, the school has, whether they're, to Jericho's point, whether it's children that are outside the school district, they still have the bulk of the children on the island. So the fact that the school isn't here holding your hand doing this also causes me some concerns. Jeremy, then Joe.
I guess just a few observations on this. It strikes me that the CRC invests in existing entities to fund them. So it's a funding vehicle. And here you're seeking to directly create a new program. So there's a little disconnect on that. Not that there isn't need, there very much is need. The thing I don't understand in this, and I know the need is huge, is it seems like a bit amorphous. I don't exactly know what is the service you're going to create and how it's going to be delivered. And so I worry that it may not be effective, in that $175,000 is a decent sum of money, but for the scope of this problem, unless it's really well thought through, I don't know how it's going to be effective. So I guess it just seems like, first, it's a little straying from your mission of how you fund things. And the second is, I'm not so certain this is creating a good foundation bricks, but rather it's like dust that'll get blown away in the wind.
Thank you, Jeremy. Dorothy or Jericho, do you want to speak to Jeremy's questions?
If I may, initially, on the point of CRC funding existing organizations, that is part of its role, but it is actually consistently and was intended to fund new programs which were not finding available funding sources. Part of its mission is to allow organizations that are on the cusp of sustainability to transition to being full-time stable organizations. Second, as to the point regarding the school's presence or absence in this, it's not a problem that ends at the school's door. It's not something that is only the school's responsibility. It's the responsibility of the community as a whole. Allocating money outside of normal school budgeting concerns demonstrates not only an understanding that the problem is more widespread than any one entity or organization on the island, and allows different resources, different organizations to participate in different capacities.
Jericho, I agree with that. I understand that, but I'm saying to you, and I know I'm sounding like I'm being bullish on this, but the fact that the school is not at the table for this discussion, when they have the children most of the time, during the week at least, then I would have liked to have seen the school sitting here saying, yes, we're fully in support of this. We don't know how it's going to work because it hasn't been clearly elaborated yet. We don't have a single owner for it yet, but we will in good faith march forward with this group to make this happen. And that's not what we're having today, is it? So Joe and then Joanna.
Yeah, I just, I guess I feel very much the way Denise has positioned this. I see this as a number one, happening outside of the normal appropriation process and the way the town operates for appropriating money for a program. Number two, there is no program. I mean, this is a lot of a group of very well-meaning people trying to address a serious problem, but you're just sort of throwing, to my view, you're just sort of throwing money at the wall. There is no program yet. You're saying, let's appropriate the money and then we'll figure it out as we go along. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to work. I think the school system and the Lighthouse School and you know, if they were here looking for money to fund certain things that they want to do in terms of substance abuse, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. Unfortunately, I just think this is, well, let's appropriate some money and try to do something with it. I don't think that's the way you do it.
Thank you, Joe. Joanna?
Sure. I just have a couple of comments about that. When we did ask Denise, and you did ask those questions to Beth about the school, and I asked those same questions, but she didn't have an answer for us around what program she had. She knew she had something, but she couldn't address it. And I feel like for all the attention that this has gotten in the community, that wasn't a substantiated enough response for the proportion of concern about the issue. And I think that the conversations that many of the parents have had around this issue has been, and I think that, you know, Mandy is very aware of this, of a financial piece. I just think that in the terms of the school presentation budget to us, I just don't think that they felt like that was the place to talk about this or necessarily ask for that help, because this is a process that they followed and it's the way it's been. Right now, I say that, and I also hear what Joe just said, but what I will say is that we're not saying that there is no program. What we're saying is that we want to have this pool of money available to the people who have the skill and ability to develop a program, because those providers exist in our space and they would still have to come to us to get the funding. So it doesn't matter which of those 8 or 10 people that we fund came to us and said, hey, maybe it would look something like this. Maybe, maybe it's Health Imperatives who comes forward and says, hey, we read that this money is available and we want $25,000 of this money to be able to translate a whole ton of information about substance abuse into Spanish so that we can disseminate it to the mothers who come through our clinic, right? Or maybe it's another organization who says, well, we need $25,000 and we want to work with the school system to develop a public education campaign that comes over the loudspeaker. Because I've heard the school talk about this, right? But they don't have a PR agency, right? So I don't think it's that there's no program. I think that what's happening is that we're trying to anticipate having some money to be able to say the resources that we have exist, go out there and figure out something, because we know you can. We've vetted you multiple times, and so has many people here. They have the ability. And then we know that we'll have the money to give it to you. I worry, the thing that I'm mostly concerned about to all of you is just the time. I mean, we can vote no on this and have it be another year and maybe nothing will happen, right?
You know, there's a special town meeting in the fall, and I would feel a whole lot more comfortable that this topic comes up in the fall when it's been thought through and the health imperatives say, actually, we do have the scope and capacity to run a $50,000 education program. We do have and then we have the ability within the town to financially see if we can actually pay for this, because right now I don't know that we can, but I'm gonna look to Brian in a minute here, lucky Brian. And, you know, I just think it needs more granularity than I'm never, ever comfortable, no matter how good the reason is I've got a great idea, trust me, it'll work. I'm just not, I feel a responsibility to the taxpayer, to the town to say, you know what, I'm putting my hand up and endorsing something that I have 100% confidence in. And all the good intentions on the planet, they're unbelievably good intentions. It's amazing what the CRC members commit to and the time that they dedicate, and Dorothy in particular, she's a hero among heroes. And so I'm inclined to always want to say yes, but in this case, I'm just uncomfortable with where we stand in the way that it's going forward. Brian, is there even funding for this if we were to endorse it?
That might be the tough part, and I'll explain why, because we're very close to the levy limit now with the additional changes that we made in one of the very substantial changes we made in the general fund budget. We have an extremely large override on the ballot for solid waste. And if that doesn't pass, we are going to need, we're going to need the additional levy capacity that we still do have. And we are probably going to need an extremely large amount of free cash to be able to balance the solid waste budget at the special town meeting in November. It would be right now it would be very difficult. It's, and historically at annual town meeting, we've had technical amendments to transfer free cash into solid waste to sustain the operations in the fiscal year. And we're still not even completely sure that we may not need to have that happen. There is a special town meeting, which you alluded to, Madam Chair, which after the May town meeting and the ballot vote will give us a little bit more clarity on what the situation looks like. The other thing that I wanted to really kind of understand, I think is important to understand, is that I've heard a few of the individuals discussing this, saying that this extends to the private schools on the island. And I'm wondering, has anyone actually approached them to see if they have any funding that they could contribute because to lessen the amount from the town, so that the program would be funded by all of the entities that are educating the children on the island? I think that if the town's going to be asked to contribute $175,000 to a program, that the two private schools on the island, who those children may absolutely benefit from this, should be asked to participate in some way, versus the town paying 100% of the program that hasn't been created. The other comment that I would make on this is that I think back to last year when out of the blue, in the middle of the budget process, town administration came forward for $1 million of free cash to try to help everybody with, to help town employees with excessively difficult living rental situations. And when we proposed it, we faced very many of the same and similar situation and questions about a program that we were trying to devise, going on, on the fly, I guess would be the best way to use it. And it took us 3 or 4 or 5 weeks before we had done enough work to outline what a program looked like to get the support of the finance committee. And I'm sitting where I sit, I'm a little concerned that requests come at the very last minute, and it's very difficult for me to understand what that looks like and how it impacts everything. So I guess that's where I'll end with right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Joe, you had your hand up, your physical hand up.
Yeah, I was just sort of curious. I mean, how would we even do this? I mean, we've already voted to approve Article 9 at $650,000. I'm not even sure, even if we were predisposed, and I'm not, but how would we even do this? I mean, it's like there's no article to tuck an extra $175,000 into, is there? So I'm not.
We would be able to, through the chair, to you, Joe, we could amend an article if the committee was inclined to do it, to be able to provide the funding. But it still comes down to I truly believe, and I don't want anyone in the meeting from CRC or the finance committee to think that I don't recognize that there's a need, and there's probably a very large need for this program. But I really believe waiting until November would give the CRC time to kind of understand what the program would look like, develop criteria for people to submit on, and give town administration the opportunity to understand what the funding landscape looks like, to potentially consider this at a fall town meeting. That would be my recommendation to everyone.
Dorothy?
You're muted.
You're muted, Dorothy.
I just wanted to make a clarification. Mr. Turbot, in asking for the private schools to put money in this, what we're asking for is for the community at large. This funding is for the community at large in programming for children under the age of 18 in prevention education. That is what we're asking for. It is not solely for the public school district, but those children that are attending other programs, their parents do pay taxes in this community and are members of the community, and that's what we're looking at. So I just sort of wanted to clarify that. If you're asking us to come back in November, we will come back in November. I will say to you that every program that comes to us for a grant comes to us with hopes and puts together something once we put out an RFP anyway. When we put out the RFP is when they come in and say, oh, look, there's an RFP for this. We can present a program and do it. So normally it isn't that we have a program that we come forward with at first. We usually put out the RFP and allow somebody to present us with a program. That is the normal way the process goes in the grant process. So I just wanted to clarify those, and I'm going to let Jericho take over from that.
Thank you, Dorothy. Jericho?
Additionally, in terms of developing a rubric for evaluating these, that's something that we've been working on both in CRC and in the Nettica Behavioral Health and in the Human Services Department. We have the tools to determine and evaluate these, and we have very good ideas about what these sorts of programs would look like. Again, sorry to be the broken record in talking about both the GAP study and the NBHI, but that's sort of what we've been working on lately, is identifying programs, identifying how these programs are run elsewhere, what models we can use, what models they use to evaluate their programs. We're not inventing something on the fly. CRC does this every year for a variety of different programs. B, there are successful models we can be pulling from. C, there are existing programs that are ready to go, waiting for funds. And D, there is a sense of when you build it, they will come. None of these programs are going to show up if there's no money for them. So, you have to meet the human service providers where they live and know that they're going to be able to fund a program before they're going to develop one. So you're kind of creating a bit of a chicken and egg process.
And I would say, Jericho, had you come to us with A, B, C, and D in hand, you would have gotten a different outcome today, honestly. So great that all of that stuff isn't going to take much time. Great. And therefore it could be, and then by the November special town meeting, we'll also know if the override passed for solid waste, right? Yes, for solid waste. And then therefore the town would also understand its ability to fund a program like this. And you might even have a better number than 175, which is one of these kind of numbers, which I realize is based on the experience of the group, but nonetheless, maybe you'll ask for 250, or you're going to ask for a different number and have a much better understanding for the finance committee to be able to say, yep, okay, we get what we're committing the taxpayer money for, and this makes sense to us. I think at this point, I will say that, oh, go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think one of the other things that should be pointed out is that, it would not appear to me that once this program starts, that it's going to be a one-year program. There's probably always going to be a need for it, which then means we have to fit it into a budget and would have to have some type of permanent funding source inside the annual operating budget, which would then increase the contribution to $825,000 in taxpayer funds alone without the cannabis grant. So November makes more sense given the fact that we would then have to most likely be building this into the 25 budget simultaneously as we're trying to consider it for the 24 budget at the special town meeting. So it's not a simple funding it for a year in my mind. It would appear to me, based on the comments and everything, that it is likely an ongoing expense that would now have to be figured out how to be wrapped into the 650 or additive to it, which is another whole challenge in and of itself with all the needs facing the community.
Thank you, Brian. Dorothy?
You're
Still
on
mute,
mute,
Dorothy.
Just some clarification. Brian, stop laughing. That if it goes in the fall, does that mean, and it gets passed, does that mean funding would be available for this fiscal year 2024? Or would it mean 2025 because of the timing of the meeting?
It would be available for fiscal 24. We would
It
not
would
be
be
setting the
available.
tax. Yes, we would not be setting the tax rate until after the special town meeting. So it would be able to be calculated and included if the levy capacity were to, we had available levy capacity to do it.
So that would mean if we put in the thing for 2024 in November, the process for us would end up coming through, and being able to initiate programs wouldn't be able to begin till almost halfway through any school year for it in any entity. I'm just getting an understanding on that.
No, but I would suggest to you that knowing that there's a special town meeting, there would be nothing stopping the committee if if the request was submitted as an article into the special town meeting, there would nothing to prevent the committee from screening applications prior to the November meeting for the recommendation on the money, so that you would be starting the program in the middle of a school year, absolutely. But you would be able to start it very, very quickly after the special town meeting. I guess there was one question that I did have, though, because I think a comment by one of the speakers said that there's already organizations in the community that have these programs that are just looking for the funding, and I'm wondering how many of them actually submitted as part of the $650,000.
None of them submitted an educational program within the $650 for that source.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And
Additionally,
can I just comment that, Brian, we had no intention of adding this on for another year in rolling it into another year's budget. That is not the long-term desire of the contract review committee, just to let you know.
So then it would be the contract reviews committee's intention would be 175 for until it's exhausted, and that's it.
Correct.
I guess I would just ask that, then what happens after that time? It's incumbent upon the people that are getting the money to figure it out from there, or is it? It's just, I'm just trying to understand as we move forward through this process, that's all.
Correct. There are some of these programs, they would be able to get grant money to continue on outside the process once they could show that they had started it. Outside our, grant money outside our process. And hopefully some of them might initiate it into their own budgets.
Okay, thank you. So there isn't an article, number one, it's just a letter that we got, not just a letter, it's a letter that we got. I don't think we need to make any motion in respect of it. Unless we believe that because this letter came, and this is where, Brian, I'll look for your guidance, because the letter came to the select board and the finance committee. Does the finance committee need to make a recommendation? And if we did, from the tone of the discussion, I would offer that the recommendation would be the finance committee respects and highly regards the recommendation of the contract review committee. However, in respect of the supplemental funding, there is not enough detail available to us at this time for us to feel that we can endorse spending this money until such time that those details are further fleshed out. And we
So
look forward to we look forward to the CRC bringing an article to the special town meeting in November to be able to expedite getting this program up and running, or programs. Brian, you're my Libby today without Libby.
I think since it did go to the select board, and my guess is when they take it up, one of the logical questions that they would ask is, where did the finance committee stand on it? You probably would want to take some type of action on the request, whether that's a motion to recommend special town meeting, whether that's, there's no formal recommendation, and it was not included in any article. So maybe you actually don't even need to do anything, but take it under advisement at this point.
Or we just, the finance committee recommends that an actual article is submitted for special town meeting in November.
Okay, that's probably fine too.
Does that work for the finance committee?
Yes,
Seeing nodding of heads. So the motion is the finance committee recommends that an article is put forward for special town meeting in November in respect of the additional funding request from the CRC.
I'd like to see the CRC, more fully flesh out how this is going to work and what it is the town is going to appropriate the money for.
Okay, so is that a second, Joe?
Sure. Second.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none. Joe?
Aye.
Peter? You're muted, but I saw your lips.
Aye.
moving.
Aye.
Thank you. Jeremy?
aye,
Joanna?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Okay, Denise, aye. Thank you. Thank you, Dorothy, Jericho, and everybody who contributes to the CRC. It's a hero's job, really.
Thank you very much, Denise.
Okay, thank you. Article 10,
Thank you,
general
Donna.
fund capital expenditures.
years, you'd think that I would remember you, Madam Chair, right? Um, So the article before you is, there have been no additions, unlike past years where things have come up. It
Yay.
includes all of the capital program committee recommendations. If you want to scroll through it, Maria, these have been capital program committee recommendations were presented to both select board and finance committee at a previous meeting, I believe in January. As I stated, there's been no changes to this. So we would ask for a positive motion to adopt the spending plan. When we get to the bottom, I'll go through it with you. This year of $17,732,044. $8,574,000 be transferred from free cash in the treasury of the town. $2,213,044 be raised and appropriated from the fiscal 24 tax levy. $970,000 be raised and appropriated from the fiscal 24 tax levy, provided that the appropriation is contingent on a Proposition 2.5 capital exclusion, which will require a positive ballot vote. And that the treasurer be allowed to borrow $4 million for the Affordable Housing Trust. That is the remaining amount of the unused portion of the $1,013,000 that is in this article as well, to authorize those expenditures. That $850,000 be borrowed for the replacement of engine 1 and $1,125,000 for the annual sidewalk improvement plan. All totaled $17,732,044.
Questions for Brian? Joe? You're muted, Joe. Joe, you're on mute.
All right, everybody. The 970,000 that's contingent on the Prop 2.5 capital outlay exclusion. What
Correct.
if that for some reason doesn't pass at the ballot box? What item gets eliminated?
It's mostly vehicle replacements. That's the way that we've been funding the fleet replacement costs. Is a one-time increase to the tax levy on an annual basis.
Got it.
Other questions? In which case, may I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Joe?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Peter?
aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. Thank you. Maya Comet Pond dredging.
Thought we already voted on this.
No, I
Thank you,
had-
Madam Chair. And to answer Jill's question, you did, in the run-up to putting the motions together, we discovered after you voted to positively endorse this, that the language for a debt exclusion had been included inadvertently, and this was not planned to be done through a debt exclusion because there is planned contributions from potentially other organizations, and we did not intend to debt exclude the town's portion. So we would need to reopen this to revote it without the debt exclusion language because there was no ballot question included in the annual town election ballot.
So what we need is we need a motion to reopen by
Correct.
somebody who voted in favor of it, which was all of us.
Motion to reopen.
Second.
Thank you. And I have to roll call that. So that's Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Okay, it's reopened. Now may I have a motion for the new motion?
Motion to adopt the new motion.
Thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Peter, Jill.
Aye.
Thank you. And Denise, aye. Okay, motion to adopt twice. I hope that doesn't mean you're going to spend 8 million here, Brian.
It does not, Madam Chair. It will only be in once with $4 million. I can assure you of that.
Hey, Brian, I
Yes.
just had just a curiosity question. Of the $4 million, and we've got lots of professionals involved, how much ultimately gets spent in digging as opposed to planning?
That is a good question, which the first part of the permitting and engineering will actually determine how much of what the necessary dredging is. We've already allocated money for the dredge plan, which will come up off that. I don't know what the ultimate actual dredge work will consist of and how much.
Okay.
Okay. Maria, I understand that we're going to do Article 29 on Monday instead. Is that true?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Maria. In which case, review, discussion, potential adoption of motion for town meeting warrant articles not yet mentioned. Nope. Okay. Date of next meeting is Monday, March 13th at 4 p.m. It's fully Zoom, correct, Maria?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I know all these things, but I don't believe them until Maria tells me they're true. Yeah, okay.
Denise, do we also have a Tuesday meeting or
We
just?
do, and that one's in person. The 14th is in person, and we will need it because I learned that whilst we're doing the planning board recommendations on Monday, there's still going to be 3 that they won't get to until Monday, the 13th. So we'll have to do them on the 14th, but we had things scheduled for the 14th in any case. And it's another opportunity for trailer time. So how would we want to turn that down, really? Really? And any committee reports? Okay, seeing none, may I have any other business? Seeing none, thank you very much for a constructive conversation today. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I'll take
Second.
that second. Okay, Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Jill.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan, Maria, Brian, thanks a lot. We'll see
Thank you,
you
everyone.
on
See
Monday.
you on Monday night. Thank you.
See you Monday.
Everybody.
Bye.